Okay, what is up, guys? So, I have another broadhead review, and first, I want to recap. I've been out of commission. We had another baby, and I've been, as you can see behind me, I've been doing some remodeling, so everything's kind of all out of sorts, and then COVID and all this other stuff. So, anyways, we're here in the fall. It is October the 24th. Deer season in Georgia opened on September the 12th. So we've been back at it, and I have some broadhead reviews from last year where I shot deer, and I've got some from this year. And so, first, what I'm going to start out with is the shwacker 100 grain, just regular 100 grain rubber band goes on it, right? And at the same time, I shot this montec. And so we started we used the same arrows on both of them. These are new to me this year. It's the 5 millimeter Easton Axis. I fletched these myself, and then I've got a 75 grain Easton insert. So we're coming in at like 450 grains, like 400, 450, or 450 to like 452. Um, so they're all within 2 grains of one another. Um, I shot both of these deer I shot one with the montec and one with the shwacker. And I actually hit both of these deer in pretty much an identical spot. So we're going to start with the shwacker because I shot the shwacker first. So we had, to sum it up, where we were hunting at, we were in the woods on this little draw, and the deer were coming down out of this draw. And then whenever we shot, they both ran back the same direction. I had my buddy AJ with me, so he was watching the whole thing. He was actually watching a buck up on top of the hill at the same time, and I was trying to shoot some of these does for broadhead reviews, and so that we didn't get busted, um, and hoping that this buck would come on down. And it ended up feeding down the hill actually where the does had crashed, and saw him laying on the ground and freaked, and it split. But to get back to the review, so this broadhead, this shwacker 100 grain, the tip held up really well and the blades held up really well. They're still really sharp. Um, you could probably shoot this one again. I'm not a huge fan of shooting mechanical broadheads multiple times just because they're typically not that great. And I've shot some other shwackers that, not through deer, but I just shot some other shwackers and they didn't maintain their shape. And that's a huge no no for me. I want everything to be as flawless as possible. And a mechanical broadhead, I feel like that's just more opportunity for it to go wrong. So I shot this deer a little bit high, and there's an artery that runs right below the spine, and it hit that artery, and both of these deer ran the exact same distance. One was about 20 yards up the hill from the other one, and they're running sideways across a draw. So they both stayed on about the same elevation. Neither one of them necessarily ran up the hill or down the hill. One was just higher up on the hill whenever I shot it. So they both went about 40 yards, hit that artery in the same place. You can see the on the picture there. I'll pop it up here too. That these broadheads, or these deer, were shot in basically the same place. Now, that being said, there was a lot of difference in how the broadheads took place. Um, so same arrow, same spot on the deer, and the deer ran the same distance. So the overall distance was, like I said, somewhere around 40 yards. I didn't wheel it off or anything like that. But the way that these shwackers work, right? So it goes in, once it enters through the chest cavity, it opens up so that you have a fresh set of blades coming through the other side. So you typically get a smaller entrance and a bigger exit. Um, I was not able to find hardly any blood with this shwacker where I hit this deer. And that's not to say that you won't find any blood or that you can't. If I'd hit the deer lower, it expired before it had time for the chest cavity to fill up with blood, and so we were able to walk right to the deer. But if I didn't know where that deer was and I didn't hear it crash or it had went further or what have you, I would not have been able to track it more than 10 yards with this broadhead. And then once I found him, I looked at the blood trail on the way back, and it just wasn't a very good blood trail. And that could have been a lot of things. It could have been the shot. It could have been, the placement of it. Could have been the fact that this is a two blade. Now it has a super wide cutting area. I mean, in comparison to the montec, the montec will go way, way smaller on cutting diameter. So that it killed it. It killed it super dead, super fast. It was a very ethical broadhead. It was a very ethical shot. So no complaints there. I just wasn't very pleased with the blood trail. So moving on from the shwacker, we've got the montec. So I don't know if you, let's see if we can get the camera to focus right here. You can see a little bit on this side right here that there is just a tad bit, well, actually quite a bit of a rolled edge on this side. And I think that is from a rock on the other side, because this blade and this blade are still razor sharp. That being said, this is also the second deer that this broadhead has killed. I shot one with it last year. I'll see if I can find the footage from that and tie it in here. It shot all the way through small buck. So it was exceptional then. It was a different arrow, so I can't really compare the penetration differences, because that was with a Black Eagle Carnivore. Super great arrow. Liked it a lot. My local archery shop didn't have them, and so I switched to an Easton Axis this year, and I shot them at the shop. I really like them, so I actually ordered a dozen arrows, and that's what I'm shooting. I have like 15 of them right now, so I'll be shooting those for the rest of the season at least. But this broadhead, being that it has this triangular shape. All right, so one, it's a fixed blade broadhead. There's nothing that can go wrong with it mechanically as far as opening up. And if your bow is tuned, which evidently mine is, this shoots just like my field tip. No difference whatsoever on point of impact. Now, that's the same with the shwacker. But I shot this deer in the second deer in the same spot with this broadhead, and there was blood from the very get-go. So whenever you take this tiny broadhead and this not so tiny broadhead, what happens whenever you screw these into your arrows is, one, the overall length of my arrow is closer to a field tip with this montec. These shwackers are quite a bit longer. Now, this tip still super sharp, and this tip still super sharp. No complaints there. I actually had another shwacker that broke off right here. So I hit a rock. I shot a raccoon, and it went through the raccoon and hit a rock on the other side, and this tip did not hold up at all. Whereas on this one, it hit a rock. This tip is still super sharp. It absolutely did not break, and I got some edge roll here, pretty bad edge roll. So this broadhead is definitely toast at this point, and in my book, I mean, I'm sure it could be resharpened. That's just not my forte. So I got that. So this was a much more impact resistant broadhead, and like I said, this went through 2 deer, and it was fine. So it cleaned up nice. I resharpened it after the first one, so it was razor sharp whenever I sent it through too, and it's still pretty sharp. But the blood trail for the montec was far better than the blood trail that I had on the shwacker, and I don't know if that's because this is a 3 blade and the shwacker is a 2 blade, or if it's certainly not cutting diameter, because this is a much smaller cutting diameter than this. But I'm going to attribute the majority of it to the small entrance wound on the shwacker, and then it does a lot of good cutting on the inside and then comes all the way out. And then you have the montec that's going to be the same size all the way through. Now, what concerns me about this is if you don't get full penetration, being that that entrance wound is so small on this shwacker. If you were not to get a pass through, you may not be able to find any blood at all, and you could certainly have a fatal shot. So it's a super interesting concept. I really like the concept of it, of having a fresh set of blades after you get through the hair to go into those vitals, but I don't know that this would be my broadhead of choice. It's certainly in the right price range. So is the montec. From a price point, I think they're almost the same. I believe I paid like $30 a pack for both of these from Walmart. Um, so I I do like both of them. I would say montec probably took the cake in this particular situation, just due to the fact that I would have had no problem following this blood trail um, at all. There was good blood every 10 feet at the most, something like that, from the point of impact, from where I shot the deer all the way to where she crashed, which was about 40 yards. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully, this is some insightful information. And montec versus shwacker. In this particular case, montec wins. Shwacker took second place. They both killed the deer. They went the same distance, so not a huge difference, but I'm going to give the upper hand on this one to the montec, just for the fact that the blood trail was far superior on the montec. Now, coming up, we have this other broadhead from NAP. We've actually got a couple of them. This is one. It's supposed to have another blade right here. This is kind of stuck in there. I shot it through the dirt. Let's see. So we have this 4-bladed broadhead from NAP. Killed a deer with it last year. Shot it in the heart. I'll do a separate broadhead review on this one, so be watching for it. And then I have this one, is also from NAP, and this is the Kill Zone. NAP Kill Zone. And it is awesome. So I'm going to do another full review on these two NAP broadheads. So keep an eye out for those. Thanks, guys.